with Intention, podcast where we bring you stories from around the globe. Hello and welcome to another episode on Rise and Thrive Mornings with Intention. And today I have a beautiful guest with me once again, and her name is Claire Skillen. Welcome to the podcast, my dear.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate being here today.
It's so nice to have you here. So please tell us a little bit about yourself before we dive into some questions.
Okay, lots of different elements. So I work for myself currently, and for my company is Ceascape Solutions, and I work in consulting, typically in the change leadership space, or business strategy. I'm also in school, and I'm nearly done. My master's in counseling psychology, so when I graduate, I'll be working as a clinical counselor. My focus or goal in the end is to focus on trauma-based therapies and grounding and hopefully nature-based therapy as well. Hobby-wise, things that keep the balance include photography, beginner free diver and snorkeler, and I love to hike and paddle and get out there into the wilderness a bit, along with just connecting with good people. So.
Wow, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. So we'll dive a little bit deeper into some of these wonderful things you've mentioned. So, career path. Can you tell us about your journey into the world of technology and how Seascape Solutions came to be? What
Sure.
inspired you?
Well, that's the interesting thing. I think my story is one that sometimes you have to say, yes, I can do that, and then figure it out later. Because there are occasionally opportunities pop into the wings and you just need to leap, right? So in the early stages of my career, I wouldn't have imagined I would have stepped into to technology, I suppose. And yet I had an opportunity to present where there was a role as a business analyst, something I'd never really done before. And this is also an important message too, is that for women ex wanting to explore STEM professions, don't be surprised about how much might translate from what you do now to what's needed in these fields, right? I think that's a really important message because initially I didn't know. I didn't really come from that space. I mean, I have a science undergrad and worked on projects and did some process and stuff like that and facilitation, but I hadn't thought of how that would translate into technology. I had a pretty different idea of what was involved. And then I realized how much did. I worked for a couple of years as in a consulting company and then was presented with an opportunity to go on a contract with someone else that I knew who I'd previously worked with. And so I found myself in a place, do I want to take a leap and go on this new adventure? And to do so, I actually needed to create a company. Right. So the opportunity presented before the need for the company did, which was, I thought quite good fun, really. And so it's taken me on some pretty amazing adventures and some pretty amazing projects since.
Wow, that's amazing. And you're right, sometimes you just have to take that a leap of faith and see what happens. And sometimes those tend to be like one of our most incredible journeys in life.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Even when sometimes people say, "Why are you doing that? For what reason?" Like, and then you end up doing it. It's like, I did it for myself because I wanted to grow and expand my horizons. And you never know what's on the other end, and that's what makes it extra
Yeah,
special.
absolutely. And a key thing is trusting in yourself and your ability to figure things out,
Yeah,
right?
along the way sometimes, yeah, it may not be
Mhm.
easy, but when
No,
you're focused and you have clear intentions, things come about, right?
absolutely.
Yeah. So you love empowering women in STEM. Can you tell us a little bit more about that area?
I think, yeah, I've always been involved in sciences. I've science initially, I guess. I've had a curiosity about it since I was, a tiny girl, really. And yeah, I still have a number of Audubon field guides on my shelf to be sure.
What is it about science that you like the most? Is it the solutions, or the initial part? Like what's driving you in that area?
I think just curiosity about the world around me.
Wow.
I think probably as being a core. It's also an opportunity to work on impactful challenges and discover new things, collaborate with really interesting people, build some skills as well. I mean, that's a bonus, but yeah, curiosity is really at the core, I think, and then opportunity to be of service is certainly a core value of mine. So in spaces where I get to combine that, plus, you know, add in the lens of creativity and innovation, and that's just such a beautiful combination or opportunity, right? And there's so much there's so much room for contribution for women in STEM, and part of it, part of the blocks, I think, is people being aware of opportunities or thinking that, well, hey, no, maybe I can't do that. When in fact, if you take, I'm one of many examples out there, really, where I took a non-traditional path into technology, and yet technology serves everyone. And so it needs everyone, right, to be working in that space. And so part of a passion of mine is to help women understand that this is a choice for you, right? This is a choice for you if you want to explore it. Here's some opportunities. Here's how things could or might align depending on what your values and your goals are. And connecting people as best as we can, right? And so through some of the not-for-profit organizations, one with Island Women in Science and Technology, I had an opportunity to raise awareness and raise the profiles of women in STEM, their contributions, and why it's so important to have women in the STEM space.
Wow. Amazing. And so going into this a little bit deeper, what led you to pursue a master's degree in counseling psychology, and how do you envision blending technology and mental health in the future?
Excellent question. And, there's, in truth, part of the answer to that is I don't know. I'm not sure yet. I guess that's where some of that curiosity is going to serve me well, I suppose. But for the counseling side of things, I think I've always been drawn to healing. It's something I thought of pursuing probably about 20 years ago, to be frank. And so in some respects, it's almost like a geological exercise of pressure and time to become who we need to be to step into something new, in a space, especially a space like this. And interestingly enough, I truly feel like unless I'd done the roles, or like held the roles, or had the experiences that I had, or built the skills that I had in technology, I don't know how I'm sure I would have been an effective counselor without it. And I feel I will be far more effective with it. Part of that comes from the very nature of systems-based thinking, which is one of those things that spans across both disciplines, really. When you're looking at things from multiple angles, realizing the links and dependencies, and that things are perhaps a little bit more complex in nature than we perhaps give them credit for in some cases, and that you're always evolving and learning something new,
Mhm.
whether it's a scientific concept or in service of a person wanting to work on their healing journey, right? So there's another element that's a crossover for me, is looking at the root cause, right? So some of how I might have approached that in technology has already served me well in the counseling space. And it's that curiosity and continuous, agility, responsiveness that bridges across. So when we think about how to blend the two, that's a really good question. I think there's some concepts there that I've shared that connect across. And there's one area that I think could be interesting. I don't know many people that work in this space, but it could be in the realm of trauma-informed UX or trauma-informed design. And so, given how much time people spend on technology, how can we adjust the experience that people have so as to be potentially less triggering where we understand and what those triggers are, um, where what those triggers are. So beyond that, I'm not sure. I think there's the the piece around if someone is feeling safe, or as safe as they can be. I've grateful that recently to have learned that there's no such thing as 100% safe space. There's safer spaces and there's brave spaces, right?
Hmm.
So in working in areas like trauma and helping playing a supporting role, I always call myself a co-pilot in the healing journey because the client has the wisdom. I'm there just to help elicit it in some ways. If somebody's coming from a space of healing and feeling safer and braver, then I do believe there's a direct correlation in terms of people's problem-solving ability to collaborate, ability to show up in the spaces as the wholest version of themselves as they can,
Hmm.
belonging versus fit.
Yeah.
And that fuels the problem-solving ability that we need today.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny because I was gonna ask you what made you choose to go on to the therapy when it comes to traumas, depression, anxiety, grief, and loss. Like, why did you choose this specific area so much as opposed to other ones? Where something quite the opposite. Is it because of the nature of helping people? Was it something else?
I think very much driven by a value of being of service, and there's many ways of doing that. And through my own self-discovery, I'm always looking to turn the dial on myself to see how I'm best able to do that, right? As I build more knowledge and understanding of me. And in the trauma space, I feel that trauma is at the root cause of a lot of a number of things. And I also subscribe in some respects to Johann Hari's book called Lost Connections. And so depression being forms of disconnection, right? And sometimes if a client is in the space of depression, it's difficult to put their finger on, why is this so heavy? And believe me, there's a number of factors which can include biological or, lack of exercise, things that people are eating, or other things that are going on in their biological system. And a large part of it is looking at the forms of disconnection that are identified in Johann Hari's book, Lost Connections. So sometimes I found it helpful to frame some of my conversations with clients within that context so that the client is able to uh, identify for them what resonates and determine where might there be some disconnect in my life. And then we work together to figure out how can we perhaps address that, right? I think the idea of playing a role, however small it might be, on someone's healing journey, so that they can live the life that they want as closely as they would like to, for me is hugely rewarding. And the ripple effect of that, I feel, is a beautiful one, like casting a pebble in a pond.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And how you said, you're the ripple effect to make this world a better place. And even if it's microscopic, at least it's a start for them somewhere. And as long as they keep going and taking those steps, they'll get where they need to go. And that's why we have people like yourself and many others who are out there to help one another grow. So I think it's really beautiful to be in that space. And the reason I asked that question, like, because sometimes people come from traumatic or
Sure.
experiences or something really bad, like deep happened to them. And so that's why I wanted to see where it's coming from, because, different stories are out there. So it's
Yeah.
beautiful to share that. And you're also international best-selling author. Tell us about the two books you are published in, please.
Thanks for that. And I need to put a special shout out to Kathy Dirksen, Linda Sunshine West, and Sally Green, who are from Action Takers Publishing, and Kathy in particular, who's provided me the opportunity to stretch my legs and find my words as a writer, as we talked about earlier, is not something I'd ever imagined for myself, really. And so the first book is a chapter in a book as part of a collaboration called Women Transforming the Landscape of Science and Technology. And in there, I share my story of how I got into STEM and why I love it so much and why it's really, really important that, women take up space in that space, right? Uh, the second the second book is The Evolution of Women in Leadership in STEM. And the chapter in this book really speaks to foundation stones. And there I blend a little bit of what I've learned from my journey in counseling, having reflected on some of my own past events that have certainly fueled a passion in the mental health space, as well as the deeper understanding that I think is needed on a number of levels as you step into leadership roles or as somebody might do so. And so that chapter is called Press Pause. And in a 100-mile-an-hour world, sometimes pressing pause can be a little more challenging than we would like it to be. And yet that reflection time is so valuable. So in that chapter, I talk a little bit about, in my view anyway, what are some foundation stones for leadership. And part of it blends the deeper understanding of oneself, which is a cornerstone, and understanding yourself through the biopsychosocial, cultural, spiritual lenses, as all of us students needed to do in the first part of our master's program. Very impactful and quite a significant exercise, I'll say. And then how do you create space for yourself in different areas? And that creating space can be around setting boundaries, and boundaries can be easy in some spaces and then trickier in others. So there's a big focus on that as well. And staying connected to yourself, right? There's lots of things going on outside of our worlds that pressing pause is becomes ever more important so that we can stay present and tuned in to what's going on the inside.
Wow. Well, congratulations on these amazing bestsellers, and you can find them on Amazon. We will definitely post the links in this video, how you can obtain a copy. So thank you so much for sharing that. That's so beautiful. Now, Claire here loves the outdoors as well and photography, and she's
Yeah.
got amazing other hidden talents here. So please tell us about that a little bit. Like, how do you have time to do all these amazing things and study and run the business? Like, what's your magic here?
I schedule my time, and so I do time box things, and I'm also allow myself to be flexible with it. So when I have blocks of time, if my brain is in a place where, I really can't do that specific thing right now, it's not going to yield the degree of result that I want. I mean, there are times where I have to, so I do my best and I get on with it. But where I've got some flexibility, I juggle things around so that I provide the optimal time to go and do something. And, things like going out and taking photos, as I know that's something you love to do as well. Part of that's mindfulness for me and just, finding life's joy drops, as I call them, and if I doing that or getting out for a snorkel or, as I said, intro free diving here, all of that is super important self-care. And if I don't look after myself, then I can't show up in those other spaces in an authentic and in some cases effective way. So if I notice things are being off balance, then I know, in fact, I actually need to set a boundary with myself and pause, so that I can actually improve in some of the other areas that I'm working in, be it school, you know, be it showing up in connections or being showing up at work, right? So it's while it's busy, it's doable. And I think the flexibility and the adaptability and responsiveness pieces, and then uh, self-compassion is also an important thing too, because there are some days where you may feel like you're going to face plant. I know I've had a few. So, and so when you do, how do you pick yourself up and keep moving, right? Or how do you pick yourself up and pause?
Yes. Exactly. Oh, that's amazing. And it is really important to ground yourself too
Yeah,
and go out into the nature, no matter how busy you are and wherever you are. There's always something, a park, an ocean, or, some kind of space where you can go and feel and connect to nature. I personally
absolutely.
feel that it's really important. So tell me, do you have a favorite moment you have perhaps captured in your photography?
Uh, I'm grateful to have captured so many. I can lean over here, but this is certainly one of them.
It's
Uh,
beautiful.
so this is Clover Point, in Victoria here at sunrise. And I don't get there every day, but I make a point of going and watching the sunrise, and maybe I'll listen to some music, bring a hot cup of something with me, do some journaling, and I find that carving out the space for stuff like that, that's a joy drop, right? And when I talk about joy drops, it's those tiny little things that kind of fill up your cup and hopefully allow it to spill over into other spaces, right?
Definitely. Wow, you're such an inspiration. Thank you so much for sharing all that wonderful insights and beautiful, beautiful picture. I love it. So tell us, vision for the future. What's next for you? Do you have something big coming up that you like to give us a sneak peek of?
Uh, well, I think I'm in an interesting place right now where I'm in the consulting world, and I'll probably be starting a private practice part-time outside of that. And then beyond that, I have a special photography project in the wings, which I won't say too much about, but I'm really excited to have more bandwidth, or as a friend of mine says, I'll have more spoons to work on once I finish school. And I'm really excited to get working on that. So beyond that, you'll probably find me out in nature again, out in a canoe, diving in the ocean, walking the trails with a camera in hand, and hopefully having a laugh with a few good people I haven't had the chance to spend as much time with. So that's probably what's new for me.
That's amazing. Wow. So many great things up ahead. And so the name of the podcast is Rise and Thrive Mornings with Intention. How important do you think it is to set intention first thing in the morning for the rest of the day?
I think in the morning, it's like the quiet space for the mind still, and you have an opportunity to plant thoughts like in a garden. And so in setting an intention, it's actually I find when I do it, it makes it easier for me to set boundaries with myself throughout the day, because I find sometimes I can get distracted by, a lengthy to-do list. Um, And it's like, nope, that's not the goal. So it not only helps me focus, it also uh, helps me focus on how I want to show up for the day as well. And what I'm going to do to manage the bumps that might happen in the day, because they're bound to happen, right? So, all right, how are we going to navigate this today if this happens? And, if there's something amazing that happens, am I going to allow myself the micro pause or the micro moment to really celebrate that? So, In short, I believe it's really important, whatever that might look like for you.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing all your beautiful insights today with us. And follow Claire on are you on Instagram and
Yep,
Facebook?
I am
Okay.
indeed. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll
You'll see
post
all my photos there.
awesome. So we'll post that on this video, how to get in touch with Claire. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. And thank you so much for being on our show today, Claire. And I hope you have a beautiful day and amazing holidays coming up.
Thanks so much for having me today. Appreciate it, and happiest of holidays to you as well.
Thank you so much.